I don't just talk about other people's stuff, I also make my own. Books in particular. To date, I have 4 books you can check out on Amazon. Operation Red Dragon: The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and the short story collection Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Hop on down to the description for Amazon links to all 4 books. Enjoy whichever ones you read, and enjoy the video.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and I wasn't planning on having this particular week be nothing but my unscripted rambling videos, but it turns out that there were quite a few things dropping this week that demanded that sort of instant reaction. And in particular, we've had a bunch of trailers show up this week for upcoming movies, a lot of which people are looking they're keeping a close eye on them because they've either been really hyped or there's a lot of buzz surrounding how they're going to be. You know how it is, but I figured I may as well share my thoughts on these trailers now that they're actually here. Let's start, just for grins and giggles, with the second trailer to Super Mario Bros. Now, you know, if you've stuck around the channel for long enough, that I'm not really that much of a gamer per se, though I have kept up with game culture to the best of my abilities because I know a lot of gamers. And I would like to get into more gaming. I've thought about maybe doing Let's Plays every once in a while on the channel, but for now I'm not really pursuing that in any serious way. That's unimportant. When that first trailer dropped, I think it surprised a lot of people because they didn't really have high expectations from the studio, and the cast list felt like stunt casting. But then we got that trailer, and Bowser comes storming in like he's an actual menacing villain, and a lot of people were thinking, oh, hey, this might actually be good. But I mean, it's only a teaser trailer. We've only seen so much. Well, this second trailer shows us even more, and my word does it look jam-packed. It's like they're trying to cram as much Mario content into the movie as possible. Like they found a way to do the whole floating levels thing by apparently having it be some sort of training area for Mario. There's a Mario Kart sequence. Donkey Kong is gonna be in it. It's like this just might be the most Mario movie that was ever Mario'd. The effort that went into making this movie look the way it is, I gotta say, even in these trailers, it's an impressive level of detail. It does look, at the very least, like they are trying to make this movie good, just based on the trailers alone. Whether or not it actually will be, who can say? I mean, it can't possibly be worse than that live action movie we got back in the 90s, right? The one that barely resembled the Super Mario Brothers at all and is mostly just known sort of as one of those infamously bad movies that people love to watch ironically at best. This movie, though, looks a bit more sincere. And even the Chris Pratt performance as Mario doesn't seem that bad to me. Like, that's been the most controversial part of this movie, even as it's continued looking better and surprising people. I cannot rule out the possibility that this is just largely based on the internet's bizarre hatred for Chris Pratt, which seems completely unfounded if you ask me. But yes, it's clear he's not going for the Italian accent, I realize, but he has experience voice acting, so we know he can voice act. I still don't necessarily think we've seen enough of his performance in these trailers to know how he will be as Mario, but only time will tell in that regard. Meanwhile, I've seen some people commenting how it seems like they completely changed Princess Peach's character from being a damsel in distress to suddenly being the hyper-competent warrior princess. If memory serves, there is a Mario comic book series from back in the day in which she is actually depicted that way. So I'm not going to say that that portrayal is completely out of left field or just a product of modern Hollywood trying to do the patented strong female character archetype that nobody likes sort of thing. I mean, we have yet to see whether or not that actually will be the case with her, but at this point, it's too early to make any sort of call on what the story is going to be like. I mean, heck, with all the stuff they're putting into it, it's kind of hard to tell what exactly the story is going to be or how they're going to connect all of these different points. But, well, time will tell. I don't necessarily know if I'm going to rush to the theater to see this one because I'm not necessarily that big of a Mario fan, but if it really does seem like it's good enough, if we get a few more bits here and there that make me think, yeah, that might be worth it, I might go and see it. For now, though, I just can look at the trailer and say, it looks like they're at least putting some level of effort into it. It seems almost like they're trying to outdo Sonic the Hedgehog in terms of quality and faithfulness to the games. And if it's outdoing it in terms of faithfulness to the games, I mean, it doesn't take place on Earth, so they've already beaten Sonic at that point. But Sonic has real heart in those movies. Will the Mario movie have that too? That is the question that remains to be seen. May as well move on to the most controversial one on this list, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And if you don't know why it's considered controversial, there's way too much to get into here, but let's just say there have been a lot of alleged leaks about the story and the behind the scenes issues and whatnot that have made their way to various different YouTube channels that are implying that the story is going in a particular direction that will tick off a lot of indie fans. And again, it seems like it's based on pushing agendas. I haven't been covering that news myself. I've been following it. I don't necessarily know if it's going to actually play out that way because even the people reporting on it will tell you that you got to take it with a little grain of salt. But as far as the trailer itself goes, I gotta say, I was getting flashbacks to the Star Wars sequel trailers. I mean, it ticks all the boxes. The very slow renditions of classic music themes that start with an echoing piano and then move into the orchestral versions. The images that evoke scenes from earlier movies, all of that stuff. And the effects don't necessarily look finished. Some of the scenes look downright cartoony. There's the one scene of Indy atop a horse where they clearly are using a stunt double and they basically plastered Harrison Ford's head over the stunt double. And because of how much it's moving around, you can sort of tell the head's not quite staying and moving with the body when it should be. But I mean, the trailer special effects aren't always finished when the trailer gets released, so that could be fine-tuned by the time the actual movie comes out. As for how the movie itself looks, though, like I said, I don't know if the rumors about where the plot is going are actually going to play out, but just looking at the trailer itself, nothing is really grabbing me about it. Like, back when Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull dropped its first trailers, I actually was excited for that, and I'm one of the few people who will actually say that I don't think that movie deserves its bad reputation. I don't think it's the greatest of the Indiana Jones movies, but I just don't understand the hatred people have for it. I saw it with a friend, and we left the theater thinking, they did it, Indiana Jones is back. Of course, they never actually went anywhere with it, because we were among the few people who actually did think that. You know, perhaps what's sticking with me is the final shot of the trailer, where Indy is at that one table. He breaks out the whip and is cracking it around, and he says, "Get back," only for everyone to draw guns on him, obviously playing to one of the most classic scenes from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And, you know, he ducks and everything. And he has plenty of time to duck before they start shooting, so the timing on that is just way off. But that's not really the main issue. The main issue is that, one, Harrison Ford just looks kind of weary in that shot. Like, if he were in his younger days, heck, even if it was back in the Crystal Skull period, I have a feeling like he would have had enough energy to deliver that line and have it actually feel like it packed a punch. Like he was cracking the whip, telling you to get back, and you would be like, yes, we will get back. Here, though, it just is lacking something. And, I don't think it's because Harrison Ford doesn't care. He cares more about Indiana Jones than he ever did about Han Solo. The whole reason he agreed to return as Han Solo was because they promised to make this movie. And many years later, they finally decided to get off their butts and do it. But something about the performance, the delivery, just feels a bit like it's not working the way it could. And of course, there's also the fact that it doesn't really seem like the sort of move that Indy would actually make. Like, it almost, here's what it is. It feels like it's a scene from a parody of an Indiana Jones movie, of someone coming up with a character who is based on Indiana Jones, but the joke is that Indiana Jones always only uses the whip. Because that just feels like it's supposed to be a gag, but it's out of character for Indy. Because Indiana Jones isn't necessarily the most perfect action hero. He's prone to mistakes, it's true. But I don't think he would ever be that unprepared. Like the whole reason that the callback to the bringing a gun to a knife fight scene in Temple of Doom worked well was because Indy fully expected that he did have a gun to draw on the guys who were facing him with swords, but that time he didn't. He had lost it at some point, so he had to improvise. That felt like a natural way for it to go. It wasn't like, I'm gonna impress them with my whip. Oh no, they have guns, better duck. That just didn't seem like it fit. And I have a feeling that that scene is representative of how the movie itself is going to be at its best. So yeah, I'm not really looking forward to this one, I gotta say. And if it turns out that any of those rumors are true, I'll be avoiding it like the plague. Now, the big surprise for me was Transformers Rise of the Beasts. This is the latest of the Transformers series that's been going since 2007. It's crazy to think that despite all the negative reviews and the tendency of people to just rip on these movies whenever they get a chance, they still haven't done a full-on reboot yet. It's still the same series that started all the way back in 2007. Film series, that is. And now they're going on with bringing in Beast Wars elements. And that's what's really got my attention. I didn't actually grow up with the original Transformers. That was just a little before my time. But I did grow up with Beast Wars. Beast Wars was a good show. And yeah, the animation hasn't exactly aged that well, but the storytelling and the acting, those are what really elevate it. It makes me not care about the animation, basically. So now, of course, they're bringing in certain Maximal characters. Doesn't look like they've got the whole lineup just yet, but the big ones like Optimus Primal and Cheetor and Rhinox are there. And of course, it looks like they're giving a slightly bigger role to Arky of the returning Autobots. Now, again, much like with the Dial of Destiny trailer, some of the special effects aren't completed. Like the very first shot when Primal swings into view and splashes down in the water, there are two people standing right there. The water is gushing over them. They do not get wet. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. Again, that's probably going to be fixed by the time the movie is completed, if that shot is even in the movie. But at this point, I'm just more impressed that the Maximals don't look half bad. We have certainly come a long way from the over-designed looks the Autobots and Decepticons had in the first movie and retained throughout the first four. But does that mean I'm actually gonna go and see it? I'm on the fence at this point. I'll be honest with you guys, I actually tapped out of the Transformers live action movies after the second one. The first one I thought was okay. It had plenty of flaws, but in terms of reintroducing the concept to a medium it had never been in before, live action blockbuster movies, it did its job well enough. But Revenge of the Fallen, I mean, there's so much wrong with that movie, and most of it you've probably already heard. One of the things that always struck me about those first two movies in particular is that Sam Witwicky was the hero, which he shouldn't have been. I kind of touch on this in the Godzilla vs. Humanism video. Check out the link if you want to know more, if you haven't seen it yet, of course. But it felt weird that the Autobots and Decepticons should technically be the main characters, and Optimus Prime should be the hero, because that's his job. He's the leader of the good guys. And yet, all of the stuff that should be his doing, all of the stuff that should happen to him, happens to Sam. Sam is the one who kills Megatron. Sam is the one who becomes Autobot Jesus. It felt like they were kind of missing the point. If there's any franchise in the world for which the argument of humans are unnecessary is warranted, it would be Transformers. I don't think any Transformers fan cares about Sam Witwicky as a character, even if he was in the original cartoon. Are there any action figures of Sam Witwicky from the G1 line? Does anyone go around saying how Sam Witwicky is their favorite character? No. They don't care about the humans. None of us care about the humans. The only reason I briefly considered going to see Transformers Age of Extinction was because the Dinobots were going to be in it. Then I heard they were only in it for a couple of minutes, and I was like, well, that's a jip. This isn't even like with the Godzilla movie argument, where you can argue whether or not the human characters are necessary. I think in the Transformers movies, you really can get by with little to no human characters. From what I've heard, that one animated series is a War for Cybertron. I haven't actually seen it yet, but that was running with that idea that they were basically not focused on humans at all, practically. Any clip I've seen hasn't featured them anyway. So it looks like it's still got the human characters in it, but the trailers are putting a lot of focus on the Transformers themselves. I'm not so easily fooled. I know that in all likelihood, there's still going to be a predominant focus on the human characters. But from what I've heard also, the movies did improve a little. Like, a lot of people who didn't even like those older movies still found a way to like Bumblebee. So, will this bring me back? That depends on the other thing. Like, I'm intrigued at this point. Depending on what we see moving forward and what we hear about how this movie's going to play out, I might give it a chance. I mean, flip a coin if it lands on heads or tails, sort of thing. However, the thing that would secure my seat in the theater is if Dinobot was in it. If you tell me Dinobot's in this movie, I'm there. And I don't mean the Dinobots that were in Age of Extinction. I mean Dinobot from Beast Wars. Because he was the best thing about Beast Wars. Beast Wars was a good show. Dinobot's presence helped make it a great show. Because he alone brought in such complexity. And once they realized that complexity worked, they had to work that into the rest of the show too. And I was really disappointed when he was gone, only to be brought back temporarily as a villain again. But Dinobot, like, you can tell, I'm a fan of that character. If Dinobot is in this movie, I am definitely going to be there. Based on this trailer, it doesn't seem like he is. Now, it is possible they're saving him for an actual Beast Wars movie, because they are sort of implying with the title that these new characters are going to play a bigger role down the line. But I'm not exactly holding my breath. Right now, I've seen no evidence for Dinobot, and I was waiting for that money shot when I first saw the trailer, something that would give me a sign of like, okay, they know Dinobot's a fan favorite, they've got to show him at some point, but they didn't. Still, though, I am intrigued. Like I said, maybe I'll flip a coin and that'll decide it. And finally, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I've mentioned in passing a couple of times that I didn't really feel like engaging with Marvel Phase 4 after Endgame. I just felt like Endgame was it. It reached a conclusion, and I had no interest in continuing. And having caught up with a couple of the movies since then, I do not regret that choice. Phase 4 has been awful. I've seen a couple of things that are okay, like Shang-Chi had its moments, Spider-Man No Way Home was all right, but for the most part, the bar for quality with Marvel Phase 4 is so low that I could step over it without lifting my feet off the ground. But I always felt that depending on how the trailer looked, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 might be the one thing I would go back to the theater for. Maybe. Like, I've got a lot of issues with Walt Disney as a company these days, but that doesn't mean there aren't certain individual projects that I will still support if I think they're worth supporting. Like, even after that whole controversy with them cooperating with a concentration camp to make the live action Mulan, I was like, okay, the mouse has crossed a line. And yet, I'm still watching Amphibia because Amphibia is a surprisingly good series. And I'll hang on to that until the final episode. Okay, now I'm done. And yeah, that's been my policy at this point. But Guardians, like, I like the MCU well enough, but Guardians of the Galaxy has always been my favorite part of the MCU. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, as far as I'm concerned, best of the whole line. Those movies just have the right mix of drama and comedy, heart and sarcasm. They were the first movies in the MCU to really embrace the weirdness that the Marvel Universe had to offer. And it didn't even bat an eye at the fact that two of their characters were a raccoon and a tree. It just said, here they are, you'll like them, just trust us. And we were like, yeah, we do like them. In fact, we love them, and we love all these characters. But at the same time, I kind of felt like James Gunn was the only one who could actually do the Guardians justice. When we saw them in Infinity War and Endgame, something about them just felt a little off. Like the Russos didn't quite get what made these characters tick. They looked at Drax, for example, and just thought, oh, Drax is just a funny guy who doesn't get stuff. Completely missing, like, they set up this whole thing where he would want to get revenge on Thanos. That wasn't even mentioned once in the movie. He charges at Thanos, sure, but it's like, why? That reason is never elaborated on. And true, they didn't mention it in the second movie, but I mean, there wasn't really reason to mention it in the second movie. And based on this trailer, I mean, it didn't knock my socks off per se, but there was something about it and the way it's presenting itself sort of as the last hurrah for these characters, because it looks like, if I'm guessing, this is probably going to be the last Guardians movie. And something about it is just making me think, maybe you can draw me back. I want you to draw me back, perhaps, but I'm still hesitant. And one of the things that actually has me hesitant is Gamora. Because you may recall, in Infinity War, Gamora was killed for dramatic effect, and for plot reasons, of course. But then they brought in an alternate universe version of her and left it kind of ambiguous whether or not she went back to her own timeline or stayed in the current timeline and just flew off somewhere. Considering she's in this trailer, it looks like it might be the latter, which throws a wrench into the time travel rules that they couldn't seem to make up their minds on in Endgame, but that's a whole other discussion right there. But if she is here, I'm worried because this is not the same Gamora from the last few movies. She was killed. So all that character development she went through, all those relationships she built, those don't apply anymore. Maybe she's here just for flashbacks, but if this is the alternate version Gamora, how are they going to handle that? Can they handle that? I really don't know. But I don't know. Like I said, I am not impressed with post-Endgame Marvel, and I have plenty of issues with Disney. But I want to believe that Guardians Volume 3 will be good. I just don't know if it will be. I guess we'll find out. We've only got the one trailer. So if the other trailer can really sell me on the idea, I might bite the bullet and go. And I think that about covers it. Am I missing anything? Suppose I could talk about the trailer for Cocaine Bear, but really, other than that title, what else do you need to know about that one? So I guess I'll wrap it up then. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.
Congratulations, you reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, you might want to consider supporting us on Patreon. Of course, the other way to support us is to go to Amazon and check out our books: Operation Red Dragon, The Daikaiju Wars Part 1, The Occult Mafia, Emerald of Maddox City, and Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaiju Punk and Other Genres. Also check the description for links to DeviantArt and other platforms we operate. Thank you all for watching. We'll see you next time.